In the city of Cupertino, all actions of local government fall under the authority of the City Council. 5 candidates are in the running for 3 seats on Cupertino City Council. As part of the City Channel's ongoing coverage of this race toward Election Tuesday, you're about to see an up-close and personal introduction to one of those 5 candidates. This is Candidates Q&A with tonight's featured City Council candidate, Andrea Harris. Tonight's segment was recorded on Thursday, September 25th.
Hi, I'm Pam Marino of the Cupertino Courier, and this is Michael Cronk from the San Jose Mercury News. Today we'll be interviewing Andrea Harris, one of 5 candidates running for a seat on the Cupertino City Council. Welcome, Andrea.
Hi.
You said recently that growth in Cupertino has been tremendous over the last several years, and that we need to take a breath, take some sort of a break. How long would you think this break needs to be, and what needs to be done during this break to look at growth here in Cupertino?
Well, in the last year and a half, we approved 1,050 apartments and 200 homes. And so far, about 200 apartments have been built. So I would like to see the rest of the construction take place and be occupied and see what the traffic and school effects are from that. Also, we approved a 250,000 square foot building at Hewlett-Packard and a 141,000 square foot building right on De Anza Boulevard for Symantec. And we haven't seen the impacts of that yet because the construction has just started on Symantec and HP hasn't broken ground. So I would like to see the effect of those changes on the town before we approve the next 1 million square feet that's available in industrial and the other 1,500 houses.
Are you speaking of a moratorium? Or when you say take a breath, slow down?
Well, I don't know what the technical method of doing that is. I think that for many years Cupertino had very little growth, years and years and years, no growth, which is why we were so far behind in our housing. And we passed a mitigation proposal indicating we would build 2,500 homes, and in the first year and a half we approved 1,050 plus 200 homes. That's good, but that's half the plan, all in the first year and a half. So I would just like to see a slowdown, whatever the appropriate method is.
And would you like to see some changes, or if you were on the council, make changes to the general plan?
Yes.
Regarding primarily, of course, the amount of space allowed for industrial development? I
am the chairman of the planning commissioner, or chairperson, I guess is the de rigueur word. And we have just sent a proposal to the council that is reducing the general plan allotment for industrial by 2 million square feet. And that's the so-called Tier 2 growth. Mm-hmm. And we have also sent a proposal to reduce the building height allocation, so there won't be 120-foot high buildings. The buildings would be 60 feet high at the most. Most of the town would be 30 to 45, which is the 2-story nature of the town that's spelled out in the general plan. And there would be some 75-foot high landmarks. So that proposal is going before the council this month. I'd like to see it pass.
Cupertino has been losing retail businesses recently to nearby communities. How can the City Council stop this exodus and rebuild its retail sites?
I think what we need to do as a city is hire some consultants, because we're watching major retailers who've been here for 20 to 25 years move to other towns, and others are closing their doors. So obviously the retailers that we had that are going out of business are not meeting the needs of the residents, or they would have stayed in business economically. And the others are being spirited away, and I'm not sure if the rents are lower, if there are sales tax incentives. I don't know why major tenants who have their business here have gone. I know that one particular business, REI, wanted to stay in town, and they needed a certain size parcel of land, and there was no retail land of that size allocated for them. And I think that's a problem. We have 400,000 square feet left in the retail allocation, and somehow we should have been able to keep that wonderful retailer here. And now they're in San Jose, and if we want to shop there, we have to spend our sales tax dollars in San Jose instead of in Cupertino.
Would you favor tax incentives or other kinds of incentives to attract business to Cupertino?
I do favor incentives. There was just a deal made here with Apple Computer to bring a sales office, which we have never had, and we will basically give them about 25% of the sales tax once they reach a certain minimum. And that benefits us all. Before we had 0, now we have 75% of what could be a very significant amount of money. I do favor that.
There's been a lot of talk about Valco recently, and I was wondering if you would favor a redevelopment district for Valco Shopping Center.
I do favor redevelopment. I haven't written Valco off. I know that some people think it should be converted to industrial or office uses or totally other uses. And I've watched Valley Fair come back from a totally static position. If you've lived in the area for a long time, it declined, and now it's a major regional center again.
Prune Yard.
Right, the Prune Yard as well. And Westgate is another example. It was in a decline. The businesses were closing. No one was going there. Now it's totally rejuvenated. And El Paseo is probably the most major example in the area. It was fallow for years. It was a ghost town. And I actually thought that really should be offices or professional offices. And in fact, it's turned into a major retail and entertainment center. All the people from Cupertino are driving over there to use the facilities. And I would like to see someone come in and show us how to turn Valco around, because obviously the need is there. If the need is there down the road, it's there here, and it's here too.
And would you like to see, when you talk about entertainment center, like would that it might include movie theaters or other kinds of active recreation or entertainment for?
I mean, my idea of a thriving center is where you have restaurants with people sitting outside at tables, little cafes, and then if there are movie theaters, that's an appropriate use as well. I think people like a social gathering place, and they will be attracted to that.
Moving to the other side of town, to Kaiser, they've just recently said that they're not going to pursue a permit to burn tires in their cement kiln, but their lobbyists are at work in Sacramento to try and bring tire burning throughout the state. Do you favor tire burning, and what would you do as a city council person should Kaiser pursue a permit in the future?
I'm actually opposed to the tire burning for several reasons. One, I think that whatever toxins go into the air are going to be breathed, and even if it's a small amount, we don't need that. I think tires are a problem, and we have to find out a way to recycle them. And one of the best ways is to, I guess, mix them with asphalt and turn them into roadways. And that's a really good use of them, because it does two things. First of all, it's quieter for road noise. And second of all, it makes the tires driving on that kind of road surface last longer. And we have a road surface like that where 85 meets 101. It goes black and then gray, and you can drive by it and you can actually notice that. So that would be a good way to maintain the economics of the tires and to benefit the community. So that's what I would do with that. I would oppose a future permit. I was concerned when I read the newspaper article because it said we're not going to do it now, but maybe later. Mm-hmm. And I've also read that tires are being imported even from other countries, that it's not that we're just trying to use up California's tires, we're actually bringing in tires, and I don't think that's appropriate. Recycling our own tires makes good sense.
In past campaigns, there's been a lot of debate and discussion about campaign financing, the amount spent by candidates, where the money comes from, the use of consultants in some cases. In your campaign, what is the primary source of your financing? Are you getting any, receiving any contributions from outside the community or any kind of special interest money? Are you using consultants? How are you running your campaign?
Okay, I'm running a relatively low budget campaign, hopefully between $5,000 and $8,000. So far, I've lent my campaign $2,500. I'm having a fundraiser this weekend at my house. It's an art garage sale. I contacted all my friends, many of whom don't live in the community, but who appreciate the fact that I'm running for this office and want to support me. And I've asked them to look around their closets for art they no longer have on their walls that's worth less than $100. Because most of us have that. I mean, we were recarpeting recently, and I found 5 pieces in my closet that have been there for 10 years. I'll never put them up again. And I decided other people have that too. So I wrote about 70 letters to friends and neighbors and people I work with in my regular job, and I have some art, and so hopefully I will sell that and help myself to finance this campaign. I'm also seeking endorsements, and many endorsing agencies will fund if they endorse. At this point, the process is too soon to tell on most of the endorsements. So that's what I'm doing.
The campaign does seem a little, this year seems to be a little bit more low-key in the sense of the back and forth among candidates and the rhetoric and that type of thing. What do you attribute that to? Do you think it's the people that are running, such as yourself?
Yes, I think that we all agreed among ourselves that we would not bring in outside consultants, that we would run positive campaigns based on our own issues and not do any kind of negative campaigning. And I think that each of us respects the other of the 5, and we have a very positive relationship in that way.
Who are you seeking endorsements from?
Everyone. I was interviewed by the Central Labor Council, the Democratic Central Committee, the Democratic Activists for Women Now, the League of Conservation Voters, the West Valley Air Watch people. So, I mean, and more. National Women's Political Caucus, Tri-County Apartment Association, the Mercury News process is coming up, the Manufacturers Association. I mean, all of those organizations, they don't all endorse, and the San Jose Real Estate Board, Penn West Real Estate Board. So all of these organizations send questionnaires, I'm responding to them, and then there are interviews that follow, and then either they recommend you or they put comments about you in their newsletters. It's a way to have your personality shared with the community.
Budget, reserves, healthy reserve. What do you think should be done with that money?
A healthy reserve. I would say it's
more
healthy.
Than
It's healthy. $31 million now is what I understand. It was $19 million, and then another 11 or 12 from the water deal. And I think that's too high, because my understanding Cupertino budget is $17 million. So to have a reserve almost twice the annual budget, I think there needs to be a plan for the money. The town needs library resources. The library's too small. Closes at 6 o'clock 4 nights a week. It opens at noon on Monday and Tuesday. I think some of that money needs to go for library services. The senior center is old, and there are more and more seniors in town now as people stay in their homes, and that resource needs to be expanded. And then there needs to be a plan for the rest of the money, not just keep it in the coffers. Is it banked to purchase land that might come available? That might be a good use of some of the money. Is it for maintenance and repair of city buildings and facilities that's planned on an ongoing basis? I don't know. I'd like to see a plan for that money. And then if it's way more than needed for those projects, then somehow we have to see a reduction in some kind of tax. Maybe the utility tax could have a ceiling on it, or the amount could go down for a year or two, things like that.
What responsibility does city government have to foster understanding between the city's diverse cultures?
Well, I think the city has to recognize that the town is changing and that there are many different groups of people here now. And I'm part of a focus group that the city is working with to identify any kind of problems that exist and bring groups together. And mostly it's an education process. When people are different from one another and they don't know each other's customs, then there tends to be a reticence for mixing. I don't see that among the children of the generations at all. And the children go to school and they're friends and they're totally colorblind, if you will. And that was true of my children who went through the high schools here. And so we have to get the parent generation, the first generation, if you will, to mix more and to have some more events together and programming and so on. So I do think the city has some responsibility in working that way, even if it's through a focus program that's from the outside.
And to expand that thought, you do feel, do you not, that there should be more involvement in terms of city business and government than is currently existing? Is that what you'd like to see?
More involvement
From the minority communities in terms of sitting. I know that the last election Michael Chang was elected to the council, but to see more and more committees and more groups and just getting more involved in the business of the city.
I think that the City Council has the ability to integrate, if you will, the various commissions by seeking a balance. There should be a balance of all the different community groups on the commissions, because then everyone's different perspectives are shared. And so that would be one way to do that. Then there's also now, the Chamber has sent out a letter, they're doing some leadership training. They have a leadership training program. They've hired a former mayor to run a leadership training program. And so people should be sought from the community to attend that, who would be the future leaders from all the different groups. Then that should be actively done. And I know that smacks of affirmative action, which is supposed to be a bad word now, but I've always believed that active recruiting is smart business.
And just to make them more vested
Right.
in the process.
Right.
Involved in what the city does and the decisions that are made is what I was.
You know, I've been active in many community groups here. I was the president of Little League Baseball for many years. I was active in soccer. I worked on several senior all-night parties. All of those groups were a blending of the different cultures. Everyone came together around their children. And so maybe that's the way to do it, to bring people together around their children.
Residents have complained recently about monster houses that take up entire lots and tower over their neighbors. What can be done about these houses, if anything?
Well, we have a problem with some of our zoning regulations here because we do our floor area ratios on a gross instead of net lot perspective, which actually took me a while to figure out. What that means is that instead of the lot being what you think the lot is, your property, it goes to the center line of the street. And all of that land that isn't really yours, including the public right-of-way across the front of your property, that's all counted in determining the 0.45 or 45% of the lot that could have a house on it, 0.45 floor area ratio. So the houses are winding up taking up much more of the lots than we ever expected. It works the same with apartment units. The city center apartments I thought were 40 units to the acre, but they're actually 71 units to the little tiny parcel they're on, which I think is way too dense. So we need to change the way we do our floor area ratios. Apparently in the 13 surrounding cities, only one other city uses our method. We need to go over to a net acreage, and I actually think we should reduce the floor area ratio slightly. For many years we didn't have any limit, and then a limit was put in, and so everyone immediately starts to build to the limit. So where before houses took up maybe 20%, 0.2 or 0.3, now they're going exactly to the absolute maximum. So everyone is oppressed, and the setbacks aren't wide enough so that, you know, you're encroaching on someone else's privacy. And those people don't want to move who were there originally. We need to fix that.
And sometimes people say that perception is reality. And there is some perception in the community, around the community, that the quality of life of Cupertino is slipping, traffic and other issues. What's your perception, or your reality, of what's happening in terms of those kind of issues in Cupertino?
I'm hoping that we can stop it before that happens. I think Cupertino is a really great place to live. It's a town of 40,000 people. It's beautiful. We have a view of the hills. We have a responsive city government. When you have 40,000 people, an individual can come down and get their wishes met. We just had a Walgreens application in a residential community that was intended for 24 hours, and most of the commission thought a 24-hour facility would be good for the community. But the residents convinced us that this was the wrong place for that because it was totally a residential neighborhood. They had input, whereas in a larger community, that just doesn't happen. So I think we have a great town. I just see the two-story character going away, the traffic is getting deplorable, and we need to take some steps now that we're at 85% build-out to see what we want the rest to look like.
You had an interesting concept about a hotel. Hotels are very much needed in the Valley right now, and Cupertino certainly has been trying to get hotels here. But you had an interesting concept about what you'd like to see in a hotel here in Cupertino.
Well, I'd like to see a different kind of hotel than we've been building. We have some small hotels. We have 2 existing and a third one that's going in on the Carlos Murphy site, and they're all the same, about 140 units or so. People come, they stay one night, they leave. There are no restaurants, there are no conference facilities, and they're all outsiders. They're people from outside the community who come in, attend meetings, and go away. I would like to see a hotel, as was originally planned for the city center, that is a conference hotel that would have banquet facilities if we wanted to have a wedding there, if the schools wanted to have a dance there. There would be restaurants for the residents to go and go to dinner, and cafes and so on. And so instead of having 5 hotels, which is a current proposal, to put in 2 more of the smaller variety, I'd rather see in City Center not necessarily a tall hotel, but a hotel that had services that the residents would benefit from. That's what I'd like to see.
Let's talk about public safety. Very much an issue always with the community. Again, perception, reality. What is your assessment of the current level of police and fire protection in Cupertino? Do you think it's adequate, that they're doing a nice job, or do you think that there's room for improvement?
Well, from my personal standpoint, I think they're fabulous. We had gone away for a weekend and carelessly didn't ask a neighbor to pick up the newspaper. It was evident we weren't there. And someone broke into our house. And I think it was kids, because they took my son's new Nikes and they went around in all the top drawers. Whatever was in a top drawer that was of value got taken. But things of real value, if we had anything of real value, might have been overlooked. And the police were there, or the sheriff was there, within 5 minutes of our phone call. They dusted for fingerprints and got a complete set, though they didn't match anything. They went to every house in the neighborhood and asked questions. I couldn't have asked for better service from the sheriff. It was just a crime of opportunity, I think. So I'm happy with our sheriff's response. I think they're great.
And you do feel the city is a safe city?
I do. It's not perfect. I mean, my son's bike seat was taken when it was at a local store one time, but it's never going to be perfect.
No.
Recently, a Courier reader wrote and said that she felt that quality of life was eroding, and one of the things that she mentioned was graffiti. That she was particularly concerned about how much graffiti has been in the city of late. Do you have any specific ideas about how the city could better combat that?
Well, I think that the city should have a code enforcement division that actually goes out and deals with code violations. And that would mean that they have to drive around and look for that sort of thing and expend money to fix it. Right now it's on the resident. If someone puts graffiti on your property, you're responsible to clean it. And of course, if it were my place, I'd want it off of there probably before the city could even respond. But a lot of people are upset that the burden is on them and that if they don't do it, they have to pay a fee. So I think the ultimate responsibility really is with the city. to take care of that.
Cupertino has renowned school districts and schools, and there have been some discussions and plans in the past about how to have the city and the schools work together on issues involving the city. Do you have any ideas on how to do that?
Well, there's one great way that's already in effect, which has to do with the sports fields. The schools were land rich and the city was land poor, but had a budget for recreation. And so I was actually at the beginning of that related to my Little League activities. I was part of the original committees that worked to bring the school district and the city together. Sunnyvale had that arrangement for many years. And as a result of those initial conversations now, there's a 20-year agreement. 11 school sites have been developed with sports fields. And I think it's fabulous. The city has committed to pay for them. They built them. The school district has committed not to develop on that land. That's a wonderful arrangement.
Well, it looks like we're out of time. Thanks for joining us today, Andrea, and good luck on your campaign.
Thank you very much.
Election Tuesday is November 4th. Please vote for the 3 candidates best suited to serve on Cupertino City Council. And keep watching the City Channel for more special City Council election programming.